Great to have you on the podcast today, Tamara. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really interested to hear a bit about what's been happening for you in the past, a bit of your story in business, and also the way that you're helping beauty therapists at the moment. So maybe a great way to start would be to have you share a little bit about what your business is like right now. Let us know what it is you're doing and why it is that you love doing what you're doing right now.
Yeah, thank you, James, so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be on board with Massage Champions. So currently I'm the founding director of Beaute Industrie, which is an online support community for the professional beauty industry, and not limited though to just beauty therapists. Sometimes when we think of beauty, we just think of nails waxing. However, it's so much more than that. It is massage, it is makeup, it's everything from advanced skin treatments to dermal therapies as well. So what that actually encompasses is the fact that we are here to support the beauty industry and specifically help business owners connect with their teams and help teams connect with their clients, because everyone is going through the exact same thing on a daily basis. However, because there is a little bit of this stigma of competition over community, sometimes we feel like we can't talk to each other, which is bananas. So what we really want to do is bring everyone together because we are all like-minded. Instead of going home and telling your partner or your sister or your best friend about your day who maybe perhaps gives you impractical advice, we can actually speak with someone in our industry who's been there, who does it on a daily basis and who gets it.
Oh, that is such a good message to have there, because we definitely, in massage specifically, we find a lot of the same things. And I know beauty and massage, they're quite different in a way, but there is a fair bit of crossover there as well. A lot of people do a bit of both. And when Alicia used to work at a day spa in the early days, she did some massage at a day spa. And I know they trained her up in some really simple kind of treatments. I guess they'd be classed as beauty treatments, things like mud wraps and scrubs and that kind of thing. And I know she would come back and she'd be like, oh my goodness, I thought beauty was such a simple thing. Like you just got this stuff and put it on.
Yes.
But the people who are trained in beauty therapy have a really in-depth knowledge of like skin types and the different products that are going to affect different things. And I think it was a real eye-opener for her as to how much beauty therapists actually train and know. It really is an expertise of its own.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I guess people don't understand that, it's not just painting a nail or, waxing a leg. We do listen and learn about, cosmetic science and cosmetology. We go into biology, physiology. As you would know with massage, the muscle, the bone, the structure, the ligaments, there's so much more than that. But I guess because it's quite aesthetic looking, sometimes we forget. We just see the superficial and we forget how much we actually have trained.
Yeah, exactly. And I think beauty and massage, it's like they've got two different kind of focuses, or sometimes two different focuses, but there is a bit of overlap in the middle there, especially certain types of massage and certain types of beauty therapists. There'll be quite a lot of overlap. So it's really interesting just to hear your perspective of how that's working from someone serving the industry like we do, someone sort of providing business services to the industry. The other thing that really struck me with what you said is that sometimes it can feel quite competitive when people are off on their own. But the reality is it doesn't have to be like that. We find the same thing. It's like realistically, a beauty therapist or a massage therapist is only really competing, even if you want to think of it as competing, they're only really competing with people who are within 10 or 20 minutes drive of their clinic or of their salon. It's not, you're not competing with someone who's across town, and certainly not across the country. So being able to have a community where you can share what's working and pass ideas around with people who are not like next door, not your direct competitors, is a really powerful thing. It drives the industry so much higher, just having that knowledge there available.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And look, even if they are in the same strip or they're 5 minutes down the way, you might be specializing in myotherapy and the person next door might be specializing in Reiki. So even though while once again superficially it seems competitive, you can still use that competitive to your advantage and, cross-pollinate clients and refer on. And, if I'm a myotherapist and my client's asking about Reiki, I'm not going to just pretend that all of a sudden I'm the expert in Reiki, and if I refer that client onto the Reiki specialist down the road, well, then my client's going to have such a better experience and will most likely come back anyway. And if I can be supported in my business by having a coffee or a tea with that business owner, everyone wins.
Yeah, that's it. Cross referrals. I love that. I love that a lot. Let me ask you, in your community, you said you run a community of beauty therapists. What do you find are the most common questions, or maybe even the one single most common question that would come up around business for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably staff
Oh,
would be the
yes.
biggest one. You know, what are other businesses doing to hire staff, to retain staff? What is the staff turnover like? And you can feel alone. I was talking to a business owner the other day, and she said, "Tamara, we've turned over 11 staff in 12 months. Is that normal?" And that's actually a very medium on par figure to have. You know, whereas some businesses who ask me that, and I say, well, what is the turnover rate? And they say, well, 30 staff a year. Well, if you're not having that conversation with anyone else, you just don't know what the norm is. So that's probably the biggest one that I do here.
Yeah, that's really interesting. How common is it for beauty therapists to work as part of a team as opposed to working solo? Is it common?
Yeah, look, it's less common now. Actually, there used to be really only teams. Back in the day, you know, I'm talking 10 or 15 years ago, product houses didn't actually stock into home businesses, for example. Or if you had like a physio or a chiro with a spare room, you wouldn't be allowed to have product in there. Whereas I think product houses now are becoming a little bit more flexible and adaptable, and making the industry more accessible. So they are allowing to stock into home businesses, which makes the beauty therapist career now go from a team operator to a solo operator.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it actually leads into something else that I was going to ask you about. The idea of selling product is really,
Mm.
really big in beauty. It's like there's a whole lot of different types of treatments, different lengths, different types of things that you do. And then there's products that go along with all of them as well. And I know with massage, it's much simpler. We just like do massage or do whatever modality it is. And then sometimes we choose a 30 or a 60-minute treatment. You know, there might be a few variations, but it's much, much
Yeah.
simpler overall. And the idea of selling product is still something that a lot of massage therapists aren't really that used to. Some of them do, they'll stock spiky balls and that kind of thing, but it's
Yeah.
nowhere near the same kind of central idea as it can be in beauty. Do you have any tips for massage therapists or beauty therapists that might be listening about what could work well in product sales?
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, for me, it's always been about planting the seed. So, before your client gets all snory and relaxed on the bed and she's doing those jolts to wake themselves up, you really need to talk about it holistically. And whether that's internal, as in, you know, something to support magnesium, for example, for the muscles and the joints, or whether that is externally, as you mentioned, the spiky ball or a rub, you really do want to talk about that during the consultation, which is a little bit backwards to what we've always been taught, because we've always been taught do the treatment, then talk about the product. However, by that time, your client's putting their clothes on, grabbing their keys, getting the parking ticket, they're already mentally checked out. So if you're sitting there trying to retail or prescribe to them, it's not really working. So during your consultation, I would be asking all of your open-ended questions. So tell me about your muscles, explain to me, you know, how long the pain's been there for, describe for me how it's feeling for you when it flares up. And then I would do a little diagnosis then. So for example, James, what we'll do is, now that you've answered all those questions for me and been really open, which is beautiful, I will just let you know that what it sounds like is it could be a little bit of strain in this muscle here, therefore the back's overcompensating. So what I'll get you to do, and I'll feel during the treatment and make sure that that is in fact right, but what I'll get you to do is a little bit of stretches, and I'll show you those after the treatment, but perhaps a little bit of a muscle rub or something to work while you go home would be actually beneficial for you. But let's actually get you onto the bed. I'll make sure as we feel, and you will snore throughout the whole treatment, I'll make sure you're relaxed, and then we'll have a quick conversation and recap with that afterwards. So then when your client gets off the bed, they've already got in mind, okay, I know I'm going to be spoken to about product here.
That sounds perfect. Yeah, really, really good. And I can see how that would fit into a massage treatment just the same way it does with beauty,
Correct.
which is great. I'd love to hear a little bit of your story too, Tamara. Like, you've obviously got a whole lot of experience and knowledge in the industry. Right now, you're running a community. You're getting a lot of knowledge from them as well. But what's your personal story? Where did you start in business?
Yeah, so I started 12 years ago now. I never thought I would be doing what I am doing now. I actually signed on to a diploma of resort management. And so in that diploma of resort management, you have 3 different streams. So you could do spa, dive, or water rec, so boating. And I thought, well, I'm not very active in terms of boating and diving. I don't think I can hold my breath or go underwater that deep. So I'll choose the spa. And when I was going through the course, I loved doing the treatments, but something in me just said, something's not quite right. And it was actually a beautiful teacher who said to me, do you want to be a therapist all your life? Is that why you're studying? And I said, I don't think so. And so through this diploma of resort management, we had 3 days at a business school and then 2 days in a beauty school. And I really loved that business side. And she said, well, why don't you stop doing the beauty side and just work on the business? And I said, well, if I'm going to run businesses in the beauty industry, I need to know the treatments that they're performing. So actually, I'm going to keep going with this course. And so I did, and I graduated, and I treated for about 3 years. I was with a large franchise company doing lots and lots of massages, you know, the 12-hour days and back-to-back massages without any clean and retail. And that got quite stagnant for me fast. So I shipped off and headed into London, and I studied in London for 6 months on the Steiner cruise ships. And I was actually flown from London to Aruba, where I traveled around the Caribbean and then over onto Europe. But the problem is that I was doing a treatment at the time, which was an internal detoxification. And you do have to remember that you're on a cruise ship with people who are holidaying with a free buffet, and I'm there trying to detox them. So it didn't quite work out the way that I wanted, but I got to spend days in Paris and Portugal and you know, Bora Bora and things like that.
Yeah,
so
that sounds terrible. That's
a bit of a balance there, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I love that you're trying to detox them and they go straight out and retox at the bar afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember I was walking back to my cabin one time, and I had just treated this client, and I'm walking back and I see her at the pizza bar, and I'm not joking, a piece of pizza in her hand and an ice cream in another. And I just thought, what am I doing?
Oh, that's gold. I love it. So then what happened after that? You've obviously started your own business after that amazing experience. It sounds
correct.
So a whole bunch of experience. Yeah. What happened?
Exactly right. I returned back to Australia, and I saw all these managers on the cruise ship, and I thought, that's what I want to do. I love how they're inspiring the team, and they are creating this really beautiful friendship with people who are colleagues, which I hadn't really seen before in Australia too much. You know, we're very in our own lane. And so I went straight into managing a day spa. And then that was a small team of 7. And then I actually moved on from that and went into a larger team and started managing 15 therapists. And that had 3 remedial therapists, and then the rest were beauty therapists. And that just for me made my heart sing. And I thought, I love this. And I grew a lot of emotional intelligence during that stage, because I was able to have a bird's eye view on the business and give people the opportunity to step up and be assistant manager or trainer in a team meeting. And I thought, well, perhaps I'll like to do education. So I moved from Melbourne to Sydney to be national educator for Beaute Spa. And I was running 37 of the spas across New South Wales and Queensland as well. And it was an absolute dream of a job. I was training people on how to do massage, how to do facials, talking about organic ingredients and how to retail for success without feeling like you are truly selling to the client a whole lot. But I still figured out that I needed more of that business acumen. And so from there, and the last 2 years have been spent as a business development manager with Laser Clinics Australia and Skin Institute, the skincare brand. And through that pathway, I was able to look after 6 states across Australia and also be the country manager for New Zealand, and really helping business owners individually in their own pathway. But that's when I really started to see the message of well, what's everyone else doing and how are their staff going, and but don't tell anyone what we're doing. And I thought, why is nobody speaking to each other? Which led me to create Beaute Industrie today.
How fantastic. What a journey. It sounds like there's heaps of really exciting things that have happened there, as well as being really solid experience in the industry at all sorts of different levels, which is great. With Beaute Industrie itself, is that now your full-time gig?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So everyone always asks me, so first of all, what is an online community? And then what do you do every day? And there's so much that we kind of intertwine into that community. So we do have a membership platform to further support people in their business, and that's 24-hour training. So if you can't have your rep out, for example, for an hour within your business hours, then you can go home at night or on a Sunday and log in and continue the learning process. We too have a podcast as well. So as you would know, that takes up lots of time recording and producing and everything in between. We have networking events across 3 states now, so Melbourne, Sydney and Queensland. And just everything that encompasses in running a community is quite a big challenge.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well done on getting to where you are. It's obviously something that's been needed in the industry, and you're stepping in with all that experience and being able to fill that gap and connect the dots for people, which is great. What would you say specifically in that business, in the one that you've started yourself, and as a solo operator, there's going to be people listening who can relate to that side of it. Yeah. What would you say was your biggest challenge in growing that business for yourself?
Yeah, good question. Look, this is the first of its kind, Beaute Industrie. It's really Australia's first online community for the professional beauty industry. There are lots of Facebook groups and things like that, but to actually get people and come together as a community, it's been quite unique in that, because as I mentioned, there has been that negative kind of competition stigma. It's hard for people to feel safe and feel trusted, I think, in this industry. And so they see Beaute Industrie and they think, what is that? Do I trust it? Who's running it? Am I safe to speak my language? And, is anything going to happen to me? Is anyone going to try and sell me stuff or make me a program? And, it's quite difficult to create that traction at the start. And I guess that's like any business. Sometimes you sit there and you think, what am I doing? How am I going to do this? How can I spread my message and get more clients and attract more people to me? But when you start getting that first rolling of the dice, it really just then continues on to be a really movable machine.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So when you talk about building trust, like people might have not known you so well, so they don't have a natural trust for you. Did you do anything specific to help them trust you more? What was that like?
Yeah, I guess our podcast was quite unique in that fact, and it was quite a specific thing that I wanted to instill in our community, because the communication pathways, I guess, can be a little bit blurred when you're talking to someone on email or text or on Facebook, for example. And I thought, if people can just hear, that I am genuine and that I am a trustworthy person and that I do get it, I've been there, I am a qualified therapist myself, then perhaps that trust will become a little bit more fruitful for them. And yeah, I have so many people message me and say, oh my goodness, I didn't know who you are or what your story was. And now I feel like we do connect. So that's actually been quite magical in that sense.
That's great. And that is a really good example for anyone, whether it's a beauty therapist or a massage therapist or anyone doing business. Yeah. Getting out there and literally being seen or heard is just a fantastic way of building trust. I often compare it a little bit like when you have local council elections and you see down the road, there'll just be posters of the councillors and they don't say anything about their platform, nothing about what they believe in. It's just literally got their face and their name. Because what those politicians know is that the more you recognize them, the more you're just somewhere inside your brain going to have this trust build up without you even kind of realizing it. The more people feel connected and just feel familiar with who you are and what you do, the higher the trust level that they'll have in you. So getting onto something like a podcast, awesome for you in your community. For beauty therapists or massage therapists, podcast is probably not right at the top of the list of things to do, unless they're really a big sort of national brand or something. What would you say is one of those things that that new businesses or smaller businesses could start with to help them get that trust building up in their communities?
Yeah, great question. Look, the world of social media nowadays is endless. And while it's not viable for everyone to go do a podcast, and let me tell you, as you would know, it is a very difficult venture to start. Something that makes it really easy for small businesses and solo practitioners these days is things like Facebook Lives and Instagram Lives, because you don't need to have a ring light and a microphone and all of this fancy software editing. You can literally just be in your treatment room and do a live around the space and show them, you know, this is where you come in and have your consultation, and this is our beautiful bed, and feel how fluffy it is, and we've got the electric blanket on today, and flip it around to yourself and say, look, I'd love to have you in as a client. And that, for me, when I watch small businesses do that, one, I get the experience. So I think, oh my gosh, look how beautiful that space is. That bed looks beautiful and warm and heated. I want to jump in there right away. So you're already creating for me the treatment in my mind, really selling it to me without saying it's 60 minutes for $199. And then I am seeing you and I'm seeing the personality, and I'm thinking, well, do I want them to give me a treatment? Can I resonate with them? Do I think that they're professional and authentic? And it's just a really simple thing. And I know with Facebook Lives, it can be very nerve-wracking to put yourself out there and get on camera, but you don't have to be professional. And I think, especially Australians, we kind of appreciate that almost self-deprecating, I'm not perfect person to actually align with.
Yeah, I love that. Especially in the beauty industry, I imagine that authenticity is maybe not as seen. I guess I'm not that experienced in the beauty industry, but I know that in massage, people are sometimes nervous to show themselves, but they don't necessarily have that same kind of veneer of, I must be perfect. Whereas I can sort of imagine in beauty, part of the whole thing is that we're making ourselves look more beautiful. We're making ourselves seem more beautiful than we might naturally be when we first wake up in the morning.
Yes.
And so getting on a live in a time when you're, I don't know, down the beach with your kids, or I don't know, come first thing in the morning, you come into your salon and you're sitting there. Those kind of times can often be the times that make a big difference in the connection that you have with your audience, because they can start to see you as, oh yeah, you're a real person. And yeah, you do beauty, you do makeup, you look really great when you're looking great. But underneath all that, you're a person just like me. And that kind of connection can build a whole lot of trust, definitely.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I guess sometimes, and definitely for massage as well, you can walk past a business or walk into a business and there's a big desk, you know, with a computer, and you see it's like little meerkats, and they pop up behind the desk and they say, just take a seat, and then they pop back down. And that's it's a barrier for some client, you know, and that can be a little bit intimidating. So to show them, you know, that you are a person just connects with them so much better.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. So you mentioned you've got a few networking events coming up across Australia. If people are interested in coming along, if they're listening to this and they're beauty therapist focused, maybe they do a bit of massage as well, but if they've got that want to connect with other beauty therapists, how would they find out more about those? Do you have a website or something they can look at?
Yeah, correct. So www.beauteindustry.com /events. So we now have events across Melbourne, New South Wales and Queensland twice a year. So generally at the start of the year and towards the end of the year, but not from, you know, the busy period, October onwards, of course, because that's when you guys are bananas. But it really is for anyone, business owners, therapists, wholesale accounts, whatever your walk of pathway is in the beauty, massage, professional industry, you can come along. And it's 3 hours. We generally have a panel of speakers who are, you know, industry experts, as I call them. They've been in the industry for a while and they do have some kind of hierarchy, which makes them really inspirational. And we just have a beautiful coffee in the morning. We have this conversation and you just leave feeling reinvigorating, connecting and networking with others in the industry, and you leave with a sense of support in thinking, wow, I really am not alone, which is just the most magical thing ever.
Absolutely. How fantastic. I love that. It's definitely the kind of thing that we see reflected when we have our own online community and that sort of stuff for massage therapists. And that sense of community is really, really powerful for people who tend to work in their own little box, and they might be connecting with clients all day. but it's still a very different kind of connection to what you get being with peers or with just friends and colleagues and doing some networking, learning some stuff. It sounds really great. We'll put the link to that in the show notes. So if anyone's listening and they're like, oh, how do I spell Beaute? We'll pop a link straight in the show notes and they can click straight through. I guess just before we finish today, Tamara, the last thing I'd love to ask you is what's your number one piece of advice for a new business person or someone who might have a small team but it's not working quite as well as they would want it to? What's the number one thing you would suggest for people in that position to be able to grow into success in their business?
Yeah, great advice. I mean, great question, sorry. It really is about trusting yourself and trusting the process. And you have created something because you know that there's a need and there's a gap and people want that service or that product or whatever that may be. And sometimes in small business, it is a stagnant startup. And my advice would be less announcements, more action. So rather than saying to everyone, I've got this amazing business and I'm going to start this and I'm launching this new treatment, I've got this product brand, just put your head down and keep working, and let's stop announcing everything to everyone. Of course, there will be announcements that you do want to make, hooray, I've made a first year in business, for example, but you do really want to action as many things as you can. So action your finances into place, action your marketing into place, action your client retention, your customer journey, and really just support that and trust that it will happen. It may be a slow startup, but you've created something for a reason.
I love that, Tamara. Less announcements, more action. That's absolutely perfect. I love it. And action is what brings results. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It's been really inspirational to hear your story. Great to get those pearls of wisdom as we've gone through as well. Thank you so much. And anyone who's looking to connect with you, I really encourage you as listeners to jump on the website, take a look at Tamara's stuff there and see if it's something you want to be part of. Love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me, James.